and let's listen. I always say the sooner that someone can get help, the better. And there are resources here in this county for people to get help right away. We hope they won't get to that point where they consider that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sarah. Gina, do you want to come up here?
Yeah, I'm here. That's okay.
You can just use this mic.
I have to be able to see the. No. Oh, that's
show
true.
up here.
Okay. Fine.
So we'll just pull down on that. Okay.
Okay. Can you hear me okay? Okay.
We'll show right there.
Perfect. All right. So Barbara already introduced me, but just by way of, oops, went too far. My name's Gina Ramirez. I'm a pediatrician in Muskegon. I've been in practice for approximately 9 years now. I was really excited when Barbara asked me to speak about something that I'm super passionate about, which is gun violence prevention and as well mental health. Those are two things that I deal with, unfortunately, almost on a daily basis. Can you hear me okay? So in addition to being a physician, I'm also a mother. I've got two kids. They're 9 and 7 years old. And recently I've also become an advocate for gun violence prevention. Man, it keeps doing that. Sorry about that. So I'm having a hard time seeing this and also speaking here. I'm going to do this. Can you hear me
You
there?
can go up there if you'd
Okay.
rather. Wherever you're comfortable.
So I've been involved with developing some gun safety plans in our schools and Spring Lake schools. I'm also a member of Moms Demand Action, which I'll tell you about in a little bit. And as Barbara mentioned, I'm also on the board at Every Woman's Place, so I do some domestic violence prevention as well. So from a physician's perspective, the physical effects of mass shootings are pretty obvious, right? We all know the pattern. Somebody goes into a large crowded space. They generally have an assault type rifle, like an AR-15, and they try to kill as many people as possible. One thing that you should know if you're not familiar with the AR-15 is that that particular bullet that the AR-15 uses is a very high velocity bullet. It moves approximately 3 times faster than a typical 9mm handgun. And it creates much more devastation inside the body as well. So it causes an effect that we call cavitation, which creates a lot of local damage in any organ that bullet may hit. It causes a lot of hemorrhaging, and so as a result, these bullets tend to be much more, these bullet wounds tend to be much more fatal. You just don't have the time to get to a hospital many, many times, and so it creates many, many more fatalities. Psychological effects from mass shooting, you've heard about them. If you're in the mental health field, you already know mass shootings will cause a lot of anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, fear, and community-wide, what you will see is that people generally will have fear of crowded spaces. They may avoid going to movie theaters or concerts or even going to school, and we see a lot of school avoidance in children as an effect of that. So what may be some contributors to mass shootings? We talked a little bit about ACEs. If you're not familiar with those are adverse childhood events or childhood trauma. This may be child abuse or neglect, the death of a parent, a parental divorce, a parental substance abuse issue that may contribute to poor coping skills and may contribute to mass shootings. Bob mentioned the link to suicidality, and I think that can't be emphasized enough. These people who commit these crimes are almost universally suicidal, so that's one thing that we cannot ignore. I just want to put in a plug here for the QPR program. I know you guys some of you did a training on that, so if you know of somebody who may be suicidal or is having severe depression or making comments, you're supposed to question, persuade, refer. So you ask them if they're suicidal, persuade them to seek care, refer them to somebody that can help them. Warning signs of somebody that maybe could commit a mass shooting in addition to anxiety or depression. This would be anger, hatred, bigotry, especially hatred towards specific groups of people, perhaps, minorities, what have you. Those would be things that would be warning. And then if somebody is showing warning signs, like these that and also has access to guns, this is somebody, especially an assault type rifle, this is somebody that should be considered very dangerous. So you all know the statistics of gun violence in the United States. 38,000 Americans die every year in the United States. About 2/3 of those are suicide, another third of those are homicide. 1,100 of those are children, and of those 1,100, about 200 are unintentional. We have 25 times the rate of gun violence in this country as we do as the very next industrialized country. So it's a big problem here. Unfortunately, there's a lack of research because the CDC was banned from researching it for quite a while, so we just don't have a lot of research on it, which makes it very difficult to deal with it as a public health issue because we just don't know much about it, so we have a hard time preventing it. There's a lot of myths associated with gun violence, in particular with mass shootings. The biggest myth that I come across when I talk to people is a good guy with a gun can stop a bad guy with a gun. Well, that's just not true. The FBI actually did a study looking at 160 active shooter situations, and what they found was that in 160 situations, only one time was the shooter stopped by an armed civilian, and that civilian was a highly trained U.S. Marine. In contrast, 20 times was the shooter stopped by an unarmed civilian. So it goes to show that having a handgun in your pocket is really not helpful in these situations. So the proponents of that myth argue that we should be arming teachers, and I would disagree with that statement. Some states have enacted gag laws, so that prevents or prohibits physicians from talking to their patients about gun ownership. And I think that that's a travesty, unfortunately, because if you have a patient in your office who is maybe showing warning signs or is suffering from severe depression, that is somebody that I, as a physician, want to know if they have a gun in their home so that you can take steps to possibly prevent a tragedy. And then I've already kind of hit on that access question. So what is Moms Demand Action? Barbara mentioned that earlier. Moms Demand Action is a nonprofit, grassroots, nonpartisan group of moms who are pushing for common sense gun reform to prevent gun violence. That is our founder. Her name is Shannon Watts. She was a stay-at-home mom who, after the shooting after one of the mass shootings, Sandy Hook, thank you, she started a Facebook page and a Facebook group asking people to support her in her gun violence prevention work. And since then, so that was just in 2012, I believe, it has grown to more than 6 million members with a chapter in every state. I think about Moms Demand Action for gun violence prevention very similar to what Mothers Against Drunk Driving did for drunk driving back in the 80s and early 90s. So moms are leading the way on some of this safety stuff. So what do we do with Moms Demand Action? We rally. This is us in Lansing. We talk to legislators and we lobby our Congress people to ask them to support common sense gun reform. This is a picture of Shannon Watts there on the right, and then in the middle that is Lucy McBath. Does anybody know Lucy McBath? She is, one back there. She is the mother of Jordan Davis, who was a teen who was killed in Georgia and is the subject of a documentary called 3.5 Bullets, 10 Minutes. And her son was killed because he was playing loud music at a gas station, and somebody shot him. But she became a very strong advocate for gun violence prevention and was actually the spokesperson for Moms Demand Action before she decided to run for U.S. Congress on a gun violence prevention platform, which is very rare, and she won in the South, which is even more rare. So, and I think that's her husband there next to her. So she's now a U.S. Congressperson. Okay, so what do we need to do? Our next steps, we need to fund more research for gun violence prevention and to treat it like the public health issue that it is. We need universal background checks. We need red flag laws. These are also known as extreme risk protection orders. So if you know somebody, family member or friend who is showing warning signs or you think may be dangerous or could potentially commit a mass shooting, you can petition law enforcement to temporarily restrict their rights and that they can no longer purchase a firearm or own a firearm for a certain period of time. And we need to reinstate the assault weapons ban. and high-capacity magazines. We need safe storage laws. These are also known as CAP laws, or child access prevention laws, which require that if you have a child in your home, that you must safely store your firearms away from them. And of course, we need better mental health access. We need more psychologists, more psychiatrists, more social workers, more school behavioral specialists, and we need to reduce the stigma associated with seeking care. Thank you.
Thank you, Gina. We get to hear from Gabby now from Spring Lake High School.
Hi guys, I'm Gabby Easterly. I'm 17 and I am a junior at Spring Lake High School. I guess that was already said, but I thought I'd just introduce myself. So I'm here today to specifically talk to you about my, I guess you could say
Put the closer.
sorry, okay.
There you go.
A student's perspective on mass shootings and how that impacts us on our day-to-day lives. I really wanted to kind of, put you guys in our shoes for a minute because my whole life, since I've gone to school, we've always done active shooter drills, always. And I think that that's something that many of you guys in this room haven't had to do. You haven't gone to school with the fear of not knowing if you're going to walk out those doors. And that's a scary thought almost every day that I do think of, and it's very difficult. So what these drills are is pretty much the first day of school you walk in, and I personally call it syllabus day. It's quite a boring day, actually. So they ended up making it a half day, which was, thank you. But what I'm here to say is that with the drills, you walk in, you sit down, and one of the first things we do talk about is fire drills, tornado drills, and shooter drills. It's a hard topic to talk about for 5 different classes in a row, and it kind of fills up your day. So in each classroom it's different depending on where the windows are, where the doors are, who your teacher is, where you're positioned in the building. That all depends on what you will do. So what it is it's called a lockdown. You are completely locked in a room that is completely dark, if there are blinds, the blinds are drawn, the door is shut, locked, and there's a screen pulled down as well. Now, the door is locked that is easily able to be shot down. You could shoot that lock and that's it. You worry and you have that anxiety.